It's time for those with their sweaty fists inside the sock puppets, those hollow things we're expected to believe are running the show, to fish or cut bait. Either those puppeteers grow some and have their puppets mouth the words once and for all that we live now in a dictatorship where niceties like free speech, due process and equality before the law no longer apply, or they accept what so many suspect, that they haven't got the necessary nerve to look us in the eyes and tell us what they really have in mind, and so back off. Them's the choices, as they say. While those puppet masters obfuscate, dissemble and distract, all the while polishing their fantasies in their Bond villain lairs, it's long past time for the rest of us, those that care about free speech and presumption of innocence and the like, to talk loudly and honestly, without fear of consequences, about what matters to all of us. Because the truth is, we're talking loudly and honestly about less and less. We're still not talking about all the harm done to our children on account of COVID and lockdown and the rest of the nonsense. We're not talking about those left dead or injured by the products pushed as vaccines. We're not talking about hundreds of excess deaths every day, month after month, of people young and old, now sick and dying of all sorts, because too many people don't even want to think about what they know in their hearts. We're not talking about the torrent of taxpayers' money flooding into Ukraine and into the bank accounts of warmongers and oligarchs and all the international villains of the day. We're not talking about that because people are made afraid of the names they will be called and action that might be taken against them if they question the narrative that enriches the few and sees to the slaughter of hundreds of thousands. We're also not talking about the blatant seizure and erasure of freedom, about the imposition of more and more surveillance. We're not talking about how a so-called online safety bill has metastasised in Parliament, legislation that empowers Ofcom and tech moguls to dictate what may or may not be posted online. We are to be gagged, digital hands clasped over our mouths. Among the overreach in the bill is government power to force companies to provide them with secret back doors into encrypted conversations so that privacy is at an end and the government and its little wizards can pry wherever they like, regardless of consent. Remember, we voted for none of this, not so much as a word of it. The online safety bill is a charter for eavesdropping with malicious intent, establishment snooping into yet another private place, an end to private conversations altogether. Not for the first time, I ask, who do these people think they are? Can it be only a coincidence that while the bill was passing through Parliament, backbench MP Dame Caroline Dinenage took it upon herself to use the power of the government she represents to try and choke off an individual's livelihood? We should be talking loudly about the fact she's married to a sometime high-up in the 77th Brigade, the military wing of the propaganda war, still being waged against the tax-paying public, tasked with controlling the narrative. It's not just the authorities and the 77th Brigade doing the watching and seeking the silencing and the censorship. Their purpose is to drive division so that more and more citizens are tricked into doing the state's dirty work for them. More and more people are watching their neighbours, digital net curtains twitching in hopes of finding something they can use to do harm, as often as not to people they've never met and don't even know. The authorities are willfully arming and encouraging the mob, and that always ends well, as history shows. So many enjoy the burning of a witch. They did in 17th century Salem, Massachusetts, and they do in 21st century Britain, as it turns out, as it always turns out. We're also not talking about an energy bill MPs passed this month by a huge majority that empowers the state to kick your door in if you're not obeying every diktat of the green agenda and net zero and the rest of the suicide note written on our behalf by the zealots pushing what I call the climate hoax. Legislation that imposes more severe penalties for lighting a wood-burning stove than for attacking a stranger in the street. We're not talking about the overmighty Parliament displaying blatant contempt for the people, you and me, that they're paid and sworn to serve. Instead of talking and shouting like we should be doing now, we're increasingly smothered by a blanket of silence, woven of fear of the consequences of speaking up and speaking out. That fear is the key locking us inside a cage that otherwise does not exist. I say we're not talking loudly enough about any of the things that matter. And we all know that that's plain wrong and will be our undoing if we don't change our ways. I say those in authority taking these draconian steps are labouring under the misapprehension that they're clever, cleverer than all of us. I say they are in fact stupid, or at least stupid clever, by which I mean that lethal condition afflicting those who believe they're clever when in reality they're dumber than dirt. I say too many of those in authority are arrogant most of all, and that arrogance is the handmaiden of ignorance, and that in the final analysis, where the reckoning is made, they are ignorant of what it means to be human and alive. Again, I say it's never about what they say it's about. Online safety is sold as protecting children. If they or anyone in authority cared about children in the online world or the real world, they would talk about child trafficking. They would release the Epstein client list. Instead of moving heaven and earth to destroy this or that individual, they would act in the case of the innumerable rapes and abuses of children that happen every day in town after town. Where, I ask, is the wall-to-wall, front-page-to-front page outrage about that and 1,000 other horrors? Child trafficking, and I do mean children, including babies and toddlers, are bought and sold all around the world into slavery, into rape. And instead of broadcasting that, what do we get from the mainstream media? Just another unedifying spectacle, bread and circuses from the servants of the state. Instead of exposing the wholesale wrongs of the world, we have to swallow down our gorge as they preen and strut and boast about the power of investigative journalism in relation to the choreographed destruction of the one, after sitting on their hands and salaries for 3 years of calamitous lockdowns, destruction of rights, and the rest. Never in the field of human conflict have so many blind eyes been turned to the suffering of the children. Let's call the online safety bill what it really is, what it's really for. No more and no less than a volume control that allows the authorities to turn down, all the way to silence, voices they don't want anyone to hear. Speaking for myself for a moment, I know my every move on social media is watched in hopes of weaponising it. I still don't bother to check what other people follow, what they click their like buttons about, or why, but unknown numbers watch me round the clock with nothing but mischief and harm in their hearts. In the past few years, those curtain twitchers have seen to it that I've parted company with the National Trust for Scotland, for whom I was the first and only president who wasn't an aristocrat, from Combat Stress, a charity for war veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, for whom I was a patron, by the Sunday Times in Scotland, for whom I was a columnist, by the Association of Lighthouse Keepers, for whom I was a patron, by These Islands, a group campaigning for Scotland to remain part of the UK. Most recently, the Royal Society of Edinburgh informed me my spoken views were incompatible with my fellowship. And as soon as I realised they wanted fellows to think and speak as they were told, and that the RSC was therefore less a body of scientific inquiry and more a cult, I dropped them like a hot potato. Silencing and censoring are everywhere. Last week, a good friend of mine was suspended from X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, for no reason he could discern. That he co-hosted, along with me and Lawrence Fox, another good friend, an online discussion about tyranny and the need for change, that he later engaged in debate with interested parties about direct democracy and the power of the people, may or may not have played its part in having him sent to the naughty step. Online protest by his many supporters got him reinstated the same day, as if to prove the point of what is easily done by people acting together. Our voices, used to tell the truth, are all any of us really has. More than anything else, these years just past have been about keeping us apart, driving division. Everywhere people meet was closed. People were frightened into their homes. Now the online world they chased us into turns out to be something else they feel the need to shut down. They didn't see that one coming, those stupid, clever people. But people talk and the truth will out. Here's the thing, this is a tipping point. Do we come together, every colour and creed, and share the truth and tell the stupid clever where to go? Or do we close our mouths forever and go home to be alone? I'm all for shouting now, and if Dame Caroline has me in her sights, she can address the letter to the coast guy in Scotland. The Royal Mail know where I live.